When I was 17, my world shattered in ways I never thought possible. My mom, the strongest person I knew, was diagnosed with breast cancer during a routine checkup. She hid it from everyone for months, pretending everything was fine because she didn't want to burden anyone. But when the truth came out, our lives spiraled into chaos. For 2 years, she fought like a warrior, enduring chemotherapy and surgeries that left her frail and exhausted. During those dark days, I expected my dad to be by her side, holding her hand and fighting alongside us. Instead, he disappeared, always claiming he had business trips or urgent work. Week after week, month after month, he was absent. He missed birthdays, holidays, even Tit, the most important celebration of the year. It felt like we were drowning, and he wasn't throwing us a lifeboat. He was rowing away as fast as he could. The worst moment came on the day Mom passed away. I sat beside her bed, clutching her cold hand, hoping against hope that she'd wake up one last time so I could tell her how much I loved her. But she never did, and where was my dad? Not there. He arrived hours later, too late to say goodbye. The emptiness I felt that day was unbearable. All I had left were fragments of memories and the bitter realization that I couldn't rely on him anymore. My aunt and grandma became my lifeline, helping me pick up the pieces of my broken heart. Then, just 5 months after Mom's death, a time when I still woke up every morning expecting to see her smile but found only tears instead, my dad dropped the bombshell. He introduced me to his new girlfriend, not just any woman, mind you, but someone who had been Mom's close friend. Someone who knew about Mom's illness while she was dying. That revelation hit me like a freight train. How could he do this? How could she stand there, smiling, knowing what she knew? It wasn't just betrayal, it was a double-edged sword slicing through whatever trust I had left in him. Every glance at her face reminded me of Mom's suffering, of Dad's lies, and of the family I thought I'd always have but now realized was nothing more than an illusion. The day I discovered the truth about my dad was the day my entire world crumbled into irreparable pieces. It wasn't just that he had cheated on Mom, it was the depth of his betrayal, the sheer callousness with which he abandoned her during the darkest moments of her life. When they finally told me about their relationship, I thought it was bad enough that Dad had moved on so quickly after Mom's death. But then came the bombshell. They hadn't started dating after Mom passed away, they'd been together for 3 years. 3 years while Mom was fighting cancer, enduring chemotherapy, and lying in a hospital bed, clinging to hope. And all this time, I believed Dad's excuses about business trips and urgent work. The reality hit me like a sledgehammer. Those trips weren't business at all. They were secret rendezvous in luxury hotels, paid for with money that should have gone toward Mom's treatment or our family's needs. But the worst part, the text message I found by accident during one heated argument between us. I had grabbed Dad's phone, not out of curiosity, but desperation, trying to prove how selfish he was being. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was from his girlfriend, the same woman who now stood smugly beside him as if she deserved any place in our lives. She had written, "You need to let her go. She doesn't have much time left anyway. Let her go," as if Mom were some burden to be discarded, rather than a human being worthy of love and care. My hands trembled as I read those words over and over again, each repetition carving deeper wounds into my heart. This wasn't just infidelity, it was cruelty masked as indifference. How could someone encourage my dad to abandon his dying wife? How could anyone be so heartless? I couldn't breathe. The room felt suffocating, every corner closing in on me. All those nights when Mom cried herself to sleep because Dad wasn't there, all those times she whispered, "I wish your father would visit more," thinking maybe she was imagining his absence. It was all true. He hadn't cared, not about her pain, not about her dignity, not even about the fact that she was leaving us forever. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I packed my bags without saying a word, tears streaming down my face as I stuffed clothes and books into a suitcase. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay under the same roof as him anymore. When he tried to stop me, pleading, "Where are you going? We can talk about this," I turned to him and said through gritted teeth, "There's nothing left to say. You're dead to me." That night, I walked out of his house and never looked back. For weeks, he called and texted, begging for forgiveness, claiming he still loved Mom despite everything. But I knew better. Love doesn't abandon. Love doesn't betray. From that day forward, our relationship was officially shattered beyond repair. 8 years had passed since I last spoke to my father, 8 long years of silence and unresolved anger. Life had moved on, or so I thought, until the day my aunt called me out of the blue. Her voice was hesitant at first, but it didn't take long for her to drop the bombshell. "Your dad is getting married." My stomach churned as she continued, "It's to. You know her, the woman who had been my mother's friend, the one who knew about Mom's illness while she lay dying in pain. The same woman Dad had cheated with during those 2 agonizing years when Mom fought cancer. And now they were planning a lavish wedding, a 5-star hotel affair, complete with hundreds of guests, flowers spilling from every corner, and an Instagram-worthy cake that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But what came next made my blood boil. My aunt, clearly uncomfortable, began laying on the guilt trip thick and heavy. "If you don't come, people will say you're infilial," she said, her tone shifting between pleading and accusatory. "You'll regret this forever if you don't give him another chance, after everything he'd done." The audacity of it all left me speechless, but she wasn't done yet. She doubled down, warning me that some relatives might cut ties with me entirely if I refused to attend. "They're saying you're being selfish," she added, almost apologetically. "Selfish? How dare anyone call me selfish after what I've endured?" Then came the calls and texts from cousins, uncles, and distant relatives, all piling on the pressure. Some used emotional manipulation, claiming, "He's still your father. Blood is thicker than water." Others resorted to outright insults, calling me names like heartless or stubborn. One uncle even texted me, "A son's duty is to care for his father. What kind of example are you setting for your future children?" Each message felt like a dagger twisting deeper into my already wounded heart. Yet through it all, I stood firm. When my aunt finally handed the phone to my dad mid-conversation, his voice cracked as he asked, "Is this really how you feel about me?" Without hesitation, I replied coldly, "You died to me a long time ago." Then I hung up, my hands trembling with rage. The invitations arrived shortly after, a pristine white envelope with gold lettering, mocking me with its elegance. It was clear my aunt had betrayed my trust by giving them my address. As I stared at the invitation, I realized something. No amount of persuasion or threats could make me walk into that room, smile politely, and pretend everything was okay. Because nothing was okay. Not then, not now, not ever. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined possible. My aunt, the one person I trusted after leaving my dad's house, had turned her back on me. When she called that day, pretending to check in on how I was doing, I had no idea she was setting me up. Mid-conversation, I heard a faint voice in the background. It was my dad. She had put him on the line without even telling me. My heart sank as I realized what she'd done. She wasn't just checking in. She was handing me over to him like some kind of peace offering. The same aunt who had helped me pack my bags and leave when I discovered Dad's affair now felt compelled to fix things by forcing reconciliation. Her betrayal stung more than anything else because it came from someone I thought truly cared. And then the storm began. Within hours, my phone buzzed nonstop with calls and texts from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins, uncles, distant aunts, all piling on the pressure, hurling accusations at me like daggers. "You're selfish," one text read. "How can you destroy your father's happiness?" Another said, "You have no heart. Do you want to be responsible for ruining this family?" Each message chipped away at whatever resolve I had left, but I refused to break. Their words weren't about understanding or empathy, they were weapons designed to guilt me into submission. But the worst blow came from her, the affair partner, the woman who had been my mom's friend. She sent me a chilling text, "If you don't come, your dad will cancel the wedding, and it'll be your fault." As if I owed her anything. As if I should care about her threats. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling with rage, before typing back coldly, "That's his choice, not mine." And I meant every word. If he wanted to throw away his own happiness because I didn't show up, that was on him, not me. Still, the onslaught continued. Some relatives accused me of being dramatic, saying I needed to grow up and move past what happened. Others insinuated that I was jealous of my dad's new relationship, which made my blood boil. Jealous of her? The audacity of their assumptions only fueled my anger further. One uncle even went so far as to say, "A son's duty is to honor his father. What example are you setting for your future children?" His words hit a nerve, but not in the way he intended. Instead of feeling guilty, I became angrier. Who were they to lecture me about duty when my own father had abandoned his responsibilities? Through it all, I tried to stay calm, reminding myself why I made this decision in the first place. But the constant barrage of messages and calls left me exhausted. Every notification felt like another attack, another attempt to strip away my dignity. For a moment, I wondered if maybe I was wrong, that perhaps I should give in and attend the wedding for the sake of keeping the peace. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't about me being unreasonable. It was about standing firm against a lifetime of lies and betrayal. So I blocked every number 39 in total and changed my phone number entirely. Let them think what they wanted. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. After weeks of relentless harassment from my family, I reached my breaking point. The constant calls and texts accusing me of being selfish, heartless, and destructive became unbearable. I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer, not for their sake, but for mine. Late one night, after hours of staring at the glowing screen of my phone, I decided to take action. I crafted a long, detailed message explaining everything: how my dad had betrayed Mom during her final days, how he abandoned her when she needed him most, and how his affair partner, a supposed friend of Mom's, had actively encouraged him to neglect her care. Every word was deliberate, every accusation backed by facts. When I finished typing, I sent it to all 39 numbers in my contact list, every relative who had dared to judge me without knowing the truth. The response was immediate and explosive. Within hours, chaos erupted on both sides of the family. Some relatives were shocked into silence, unable to refute the evidence I provided. Others began questioning Dad and his fiancée more aggressively, demanding answers that neither seemed prepared to give. A few cousins who had initially pressured me to attend the wedding suddenly pulled out entirely, claiming they couldn't support such hypocrisy. One cousin even texted me privately, apologizing for doubting me and admitting that she now understood why I cut ties with Dad. It wasn't just guilt or shame, it was outrage. The cracks in their perfect facade were beginning to show. But as expected, not everyone reacted with remorse. My dad's fiancée, the woman who had once been Mom's friend, spiraled into a full-blown meltdown. She accused me of orchestrating this entire mess to sabotage her happiness. "You're trying to ruin us," she texted furiously, her words dripping with venom. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Her anger didn't surprise me. If anything, it confirmed what I already knew: she cared more about protecting herself than facing the consequences of her actions. To make matters worse, she started lashing out at anyone who dared question her version of events, including members of her own family. According to my aunt's fiancé, who later relayed the details, she went so far as to ban certain relatives from attending the wedding if they brought up the past. Despite the drama unfolding around them, my dad remained eerily quiet. He wanted to postpone the wedding to talk things through, but his fiancée refused, threatening to leave him if he did. It was ironic: after years of prioritizing her over everyone else, he was now trapped in a relationship where compromise meant sacrificing his own desires. Watching their dysfunction play out from afar gave me no satisfaction, only confirmation that I had made the right choice. In the end, I blocked every single number that had harassed me and changed my phone number entirely. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. They could argue, cry, or blame each other all they wanted, but none of it mattered anymore. I had done what I needed to do, and though the scars would always remain, I finally felt free. Leaving behind the chaos of my old life, I moved to a new city, a fresh start, or so I hoped. The apartment I chose was as secure as they came, key fob-operated elevators, 24/7 security guards, and a strict policy that only residents could enter. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Every knock on the door made my heart race. Every unfamiliar face in the hallway sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't shake the fear that someone from my family might find me. What if they showed up unannounced? What if they tried to force their way into my fragile peace? These thoughts haunted me daily, gnawing at what little sanity I had left. Therapy became my lifeline, though it often felt like walking through quicksand. During one particularly raw session, my therapist gently pointed out something I hadn't fully acknowledged. I was drowning in grief and anger, emotions I'd buried deep inside for years. She diagnosed me with severe anxiety and depression, conditions that explained why I woke up some mornings unable to breathe, why certain memories would send me spiraling into panic attacks. But nothing prepared me for the night I almost hurt myself. Alone in my dimly lit apartment, I sat on the bathroom floor staring at a shard of glass, flashes of my dad's betrayal playing over and over in my mind. The weight of everything, the lies, the abandonment, the shattered trust felt unbearable. For a moment, I thought about ending the pain permanently. But then Mia's voice echoed in my head, not her recent words of goodbye, but an old memory of her telling me, "You're stronger than this." That voice pulled me back from the edge, but the scars remained. Mia. Thinking about her still hurts. We celebrated 2 years together once, talked about building a future. But after everything that happened, I wasn't the same person anymore. My unresolved trauma turned me into someone she didn't recognize, a shadow of who I used to be. She stayed by my side for months, checking on me every day after we broke up, but eventually, she admitted she couldn't handle watching me self-destruct. "I love you," she said, tears streaming down her face, "but I can't save you." Her words cut deeper than any blade ever could. As much as it broke me, I understood. How could anyone love someone who couldn't even stand to look in the mirror? Now, I live alone, surrounded by silence except for the occasional hum of the refrigerator or the distant sound of traffic outside. Work keeps me busy, therapy helps me heal, but nights are the hardest. Nightmares plague me, visions of my dad laughing with his affair partner while mom fades into the background like a ghost. Sometimes, I wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, clutching my chest as if trying to hold my heart together. Other times, I lie awake for hours, replaying conversations in my head, wondering if there was anything I could have done differently. But slowly, painfully, I'm learning to accept the past. Not forgive, it's too soon for that, but to acknowledge it without letting it consume me. I've started journaling, pouring my darkest thoughts onto paper so they don't suffocate me. And though I still flinch at unexpected knocks or jump when my phone buzzes, I remind myself that I'm safe here. Safe from them, safe from the ghosts of yesterday. One day, maybe, I'll believe it completely. One night, as I walked home from work, my heart skipped a beat when I noticed a dark sedan parked just outside the entrance to my apartment complex. The windows were tinted, and the engine idled quietly, almost ominously. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it someone from Dad's side of the family? Had they somehow tracked me down despite all my precautions? I quickened my pace, clutching my bag tightly against my chest, and glanced over my shoulder every few seconds until I reached the safety of the lobby. Once inside, I peeked through the glass doors, watching as the car slowly drove away. It could have been nothing, a random visitor or delivery driver, but the paranoia lingered long after the vehicle disappeared from sight. The next day, I confided in my best friend about what happened. She listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern, before suggesting something absurd yet oddly cathartic: "Why don't we ruin their wedding?" At first, I thought she was joking, but her eyes sparkled mischievously as she elaborated on her plan. "We'll release black balloons at the venue or send fake congratulatory cards to all the guests," she said, laughing wickedly. Imagine them opening envelopes filled with sarcastic messages like, "Congrats on finally making it official." Though neither of us intended to follow through, brainstorming these ridiculous schemes became an unexpected outlet for my frustration. For hours, we laughed hysterically, imagining the chaos such pranks might cause. It wasn't revenge, it was therapy disguised as mischief. But not everything brought relief. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakably my dad's. My stomach churned as I opened it, half expecting another guilt trip disguised as reconciliation. To my surprise, he admitted everything: the betrayal, the lies, the years of neglect, and begged for forgiveness. He wrote about how much he regretted hurting Mom and me, how he wished he could turn back time and make things right. Each sentence felt heavier than the last, weighing me down instead of lifting the burden I'd carried for so long. Instead of feeling closure, I felt suffocated. His words weren't apologies. They were excuses wrapped in pretty packaging. I sat there, staring at the pages, tears blurring the ink. Part of me wanted to believe him, to think that maybe he truly regretted his actions, but the rest of me knew better. Forgiveness wouldn't bring Mom back. It wouldn't erase the pain of growing up without a father who cared. And it certainly wouldn't undo the damage he'd caused. In a moment of clarity, I crumpled the letter into a ball and tossed it into the fireplace. As the flames consumed the paper, I whispered, "It's too late." Watching the edges curl and blacken gave me a strange sense of satisfaction, not because I hated him, but because I realized I no longer needed his validation. Whatever bond we once had was gone, reduced to ashes just like that letter. Still, sleep eluded me that night. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump, convinced someone was lurking outside my door. The paranoia never fully went away, even though logic told me I was safe. But amidst the fear and anger, there was also resilience. I had survived betrayal, abandonment, and judgment. If I could face those demons, I could face anything, even the ghosts of my past.